There was once a man named Richard, who lived all on his own. He had no friends to speak of. He was really quite alone. There was one girl he fancied. She was the girl who lived next door, but they were only mere acquaintances. Nothing less, and nothing more. Nights were lonely times for Richard, as he sat there in his bed, to his side a pile of storybooks, rereading ones he'd read. Then one night there came a sound, one that seemed so out of place. Something else was in there with him, in his tiny living space. Richard walked over to the closet, which had produced the sound, and as he peered into the dark, he was frightened at what he found. For Richard had discovered he was a quite unwitting host, as he now shared his apartment with what seemed to be a ghost. Richard fled under his sheets, the safest place to hide, but as he peeked over the blanket, he saw the ghost was by his side. He stood there next to Richard, as sad as he could be, and Richard began to wonder, is he lonely just like me? Richard took a book to read aloud, so the ghost might plainly see that Richard did not fear him, but enjoyed his company. For many, many, many nights the ghost returned the same, and as the ghost he never spoke, Richard did not know his name. So though the ghost did look a fright, his visage bruised and bloody, because of what he meant to Richard, he chose to call him Buddy. So each night Buddy listened, as each night Richard spoke, to share with him a story, or merely tell a joke. Richard even shared his greatest wish, one which none other was above. He wished to find a pretty girl, a girl whom he could love. So through another many, many nights, and many, many more, man and ghost grew best of friends. Of this we can be sure, which is the reason why poor Richard one night was concerned, as it had yet been 7 nights since Buddy last returned. Poor sad Richard sat in bed, on his sheets he curled, feeling more lonely than any man, the most lonely in the world. Five knocks then sounded from his door, so strange this late at night, and Richard rushed to answer, knowing something wasn't right. As he checked the peephole, he saw there standing at his door his acquaintance of a neighbor, nothing less and nothing more. He invited her into his home, and she shared with him her plight. This past week she thought she'd had a ghost, but she for sure had one tonight. This Richard did not understand. Would Buddy visit her? He had to go next door and check. He had to just make sure. So Richard walked into her home, and his mind began to swirl, as he saw his Buddy standing there, and that he ditched him for a girl. But how could Buddy do this? The friendship had been so good. But there was something there in Buddy's eyes. Then Richard understood. Richard then walked right up to the ghost, strong and steady as a man, and ordered it to leave at once. "Go on, get now, understand?" The ghost complied and turned away, and left as he was told, and Richard was left standing there, so very brave and very bold. The girl stood there in shock, relief arising on her face, and then she hugged old Richard in a tight, sincere embrace. Then as he left her home, he asked if they might meet once more, and to his surprise she answered yes, as they stood there by the door. She gave a smile as he left, one that was not at all pretend, and in that smile Richard knew his acquaintance was now a friend. So don't give up during times when you feel alone the most, 'cause you just never know when you might make friends with a ghost. The end.